Is Disney creatively bankrupt? I want to have a discussion today about this because I have felt this way for quite some time, but it feels like it's actually getting worse. Not just with the Disney live action remakes of their own classic animated, films, but also it feels like Marvel is really kind of somewhat falling apart and Star Wars has kind of fallen apart too. There's other things too here and there that Disney's put out. So I want to discuss this and try to figure out where this started and what we can do. So let me introduce, please welcome back to the channel from KRW Real to Real. What's up, man?
Hey man, always great to be here. Thank you for having me. And yeah, like there's just a lot to discuss when it comes to Disney's creative bankruptcy, especially since the beginning of 2020 and the pandemic, and how they've kind of tanked a lot of their content.
Yeah, it really has been an issue. And there's been, the thing is, I think for a while everyone was kind of hurting, but now that it's been a few years, we've seen some successes. I mean, Across the Spider Verse did very well, Top Gun Maverick did very well, the Mario movie did very well, and those three are not Disney properties. It seems like a lot of what Disney puts out has not been hitting. And the thing that's crazy is when you look at and you analyze the past even 50 years, even longer than that, the Disney marketing machine is second to none. Disney's production values, Mickey Mouse is a household name. Everything Disney has represented for so long has been just banger after banger after banger after banger. Now, I'm not saying the company's going to go bankrupt or anything extreme like that, but there's been a bit of a creative lull, and I think it's been going on for a while now. Disney went out and they bought a bunch of big properties, Marvel and Star Wars being the two biggest, and really the MCU. Let's go back to Endgame era. Prior to Phase 4 and 5, the MCU became the most successful film franchise of all time. And the previous most successful was Star Wars. So Disney has like a almost like a monopoly, right? But yet the quality of the product has gone down. Now, I've always been one who has many times discussed, and you and I have talked about this not just on Geek the Movie Talk, but also privately, that corporations oftentimes ruin art. Not every time, but when you have a boardroom filled with people whose main objective is how to get the stock up, how to get more income, more bonuses on my paycheck, the idea of telling a good story or the idea of pleasing the fans is not always at the front. Now, obviously, pleasing the fans to them is getting the fans money. So at times that is the right way to do it. But oftentimes the execution of things just does not work. So, do you think the corporate Disney being corporate is really that big of an issue? What is going on with them lately? What do
Well,
you
I want to
think?
go back. Well, yeah, I wanted to go back to what you were saying just a little bit earlier about Disney kind of falling off a cliff. To put it into perspective for everybody, and just so everybody remembers, 2019 was a banner year for Disney. I honestly don't think that they're ever going to have a year that successful again. Remember, for everybody unaware, this was right before COVID and everything. This was right before everything shut down. That specific year, there was 9 movies that made $1 billion at the box office. Disney Plus was coming out at the very end of that year, yeah, and there was a lot of excitement about what that could possibly mean, especially with all the announcements from Star Wars and Marvel and everything, exclusive television shows from the biggest brands in the entire entertainment industry. That year we had Avengers Endgame, Lion King, Frozen 2, Captain Marvel, Star Wars Episode 9, Toy Story 4, and Aladdin. 7 of the $9 billion movies that came out that year were from Disney.
That's
And you
right.
know,
Yeah.
and you know, and you know what? Their only billion-dollar movie since 2019 was a Fox import with Avatar 2.
Yeah, right. And I was actually surprised as to how well that movie did. I know James Cameron has like the Midas touch when it comes to films,
Mhm.
but I was surprised it did so well. Avatar 1 is not one of my favorite Cameron films. It's just funny because when you look at Cameron's filmography, it's actually more in my least favorite. To be honest with you, but when it comes to like the success of it, yeah, it's an import, but it's still under a Disney brand. It's
Right.
almost monopolizing. Before we
Well,
started recording, you said because for a long time Pixar was the one studio alongside Disney that was giving us consistently good movies. Pixar knew they had the Midas touch where they were able to make these kids movies that had such interesting premises and phenomenal characters and storytelling that adults could like it. 40-year-olds love Toy Story. I mean, it came out when they were kids, but you get my point. They're like family films done right. There's lots of deep themes in them. Why is it that Pixar's creative team is so much better than Disney's, and what's happened with them, in your opinion?
well, okay. Pixar is a really interesting amalgamation of this. Like I said earlier, all of the information with Disney Plus coming out and all of the Star Wars and Marvel television shows and content that they were going to put out exclusively on Disney Plus made a lot of people happy in 2019. The anticipation was there. The pandemic hit, and then Disney was like, hey, we need content coming out. We're not putting things in theaters. We have all of these Pixar movies in the bank. Let's just put them out on Disney Plus for free, no premium like they did with Black Widow or Mulan or something like that. And I have to say, I feel like that kind of diluted the Pixar brand, especially in a situation where now you have Illumination, who has been a prominent player for Universal over the
Yeah.
last decade. Now they're kind of coming out swinging. Now they've created, whether or not it was intentional for them, this whole concept of the Minions as a dominant franchise, along with Despicable Me and the Mario movie, but they kind of lucked out with the whole Gentle Minions meme thing, where they had almost $1 billion movie during kind of the very end of that lull with people going to the movies or not going to a movies. Uh, they have kind of come out ahead of Pixar in this situation where they're the premium adult friendly child animation studio. Illumination with Universal is what I'm saying.
Right.
Pixar has essentially kneecapped itself because of Disney's decisions to put out content for free and thus undervaluing the experience of going to the movies, which is one of the things that I think
Yep.
we can go
Streaming
back and discuss it. Yeah,
yeah,
we
streaming
could
has changed the game.
we could go back and discuss this with Marvel and Disney as well, but they have overflooded the market and made content too readily accessible. But in order to do that, they've had to speed up productions and tell stories that they weren't ready to tell, stretching out concepts that should have been movies into entire series, or essentially boiling something down into a special presentation or something and putting it out there for everybody to see. I think the result is, and this kind of goes back to what you were saying with the shareholders and the executives trying to make sure that they have certain content coming out every single week or something to keep people's interest and keep them paying a monthly subscription service, or at least engaged with everything Disney is putting out as a brand, whether it's Star Wars, Marvel, Pixar, or otherwise. When you're trying to appease all of your shareholders and you're trying to get things out on a certain deadline, there is no room to think about whether something is quality content or not. And so when you just release something willy nilly, but that thing is tied to one of your biggest brands, you end up diluting the excitement for anything that comes in the future. So you have something like Kenobi or Book of Boba Fett, Secret Invasion, or something of the like coming out almost on a weekly basis, and it kind of dilutes the excitement for the legitimately good things out there, like something Guardians of the Galaxy 3, or God forbid the Marvels if that's actually good, but
No,
based on what we've seen, I know based on what we've seen, it doesn't look very good. And everyone can say what they want about the first movie or something. This one actually,
this
at
one looks
least to me,
worse.
looks yeah, it looks
Yeah.
it looks
And
pathetic.
then the director saying, "Oh, yeah, it's I don't even know, man." Well, the thing is, it's funny because, and I don't want to get we're going to go down a little bit. We're going to go down a tiny bit of the political route, but not entirely. What I find funny about Disney is that when we were all kids, Disney was producing these great movies. I was a kid during the Disney Renaissance, so I lived through like Lion King and Aladdin coming out, getting the VHSs, and it was just one hit after another. Disney was a beloved brand. Now that we're adults, and I don't know if it was the case back then with our parents. My parents really were, they were not from the US and they really weren't political, but the idea of this sort of faceless evil corporation that Disney is now was not a thing back then. Now, a lot of people view Disney as an evil corporation. They really do. Not just the nerds who are pissed off about Kathy Kennedy screwing up Star Wars and you know Kevin Feige dropping the ball on Marvel and the SJW versus anti SJW. Not even that. The fact that now it's actually getting to the point where with this SAG scandal, Disney straight up, according to the leaks, is saying that, well, we're going to starve them out. We're going to go through with an AI writer. Like, Disney's not doing themselves any favors with people when they say things like that because you literally are taking your writers and taking a dump on them. And the thing that blows my mind is it's almost like, and this is something that I've in my head tried to wrap my head around. I don't think Disney even understands the kind of shit. I don't think Disney even understands what they're doing. I think a lot of times when somebody criticizes that company, they do that horrible thing where they blame the fans. When Last Jedi was criticized, they labeled all the fans as being these white misogynists. Not true. When X movie gets criticized, they always have a way of labeling the fans instead of looking internally and saying, okay, we screwed up. And I feel like that is basically because Disney is run by a corporation who pretty much knows we're a monopoly. We own all your favorite things. And if you want any more Star Wars, any more Marvel, any more, you know, of your favorite characters, whether it be Mickey, Daffy Duck, or whomever, you got to come back to us. And it's almost like this weird narcissistic relationship where it's almost like abusive to the fans. They almost gaslight the fans. And I just wonder when the breaking point is. And the only way for there to be a breaking point is for the fans to actually speak with their wallets. But unfortunately, is that going to happen? It's happened before, but is that going to happen here? And I feel like, I mean, dude, Last Jedi was so polarizing, and yet Rise of Skywalker did $1 million, over
Billion.
a million,
It was a
billion,
billion.
over a billion. And so when they look at that, when they look at the numbers, what do they tell themselves? Well, it doesn't matter that Last Jedi was hated because look at the money we made. We didn't do that much damage to the fandom. So they always, and to be honest with you, I think they're right. I'm not saying I'm a victim of this, but Disney Plus is always going to have subscribers because they have a lot of content on there, and they're always going to put out little nuggets of stuff that's actually appealing. Ahsoka. I'm interested in Ahsoka. I don't like the direction Disney's gone in, but I am interested in Ahsoka. Is Ahsoka going to be good? Don't know. But Ahsoka will be there, but then there will be 15 other shows that are just garbage. So I'm sitting here like they almost know and are pros at taking people's money. And I feel like now they care more about that than anything. And I know someone out there saying, oh, of course they do. The corporation's got to make money. And it's like, yeah, but historically, when you spend your money on something, you want an exchange. If you spend your $12 to go see a movie or however much you spend, you want to sit there for those 2 hours or 3 hours and be entertained and leave the theater thinking, talking about what you saw. You don't want to leave the theater pissed off and upset that the movie sucked. And I feel like so many people have been so jaded by Disney that it's almost like their perceptions change. And that's really what I was trying to get to with that long multiple paragraph I just gave you.
Well, I think you're right for a lot of reasons. And I will say, I don't think that, first and foremost, I don't think Disney is ever been considered a good company. I think we're looking at it with
Rose
rose-colored
colored, right?
glasses.
And that was something I was going to tell you. As kids, it
Yeah.
was different, you know.
Yeah, well, yeah, as kids, it was different, but the Disney Corporation's always been about money. It's always been Disney, right? It's just exploded in a lot of ways over the last, like, oh my gosh, like ongoing 20 years. But I guess we can legitimately say since they acquired Pixar. So yeah, almost 20 years now. And so the idea is, can you can this big juggernaut be hurt? And as
That's
you alluded
exactly
to,
that's what
yeah,
I'm trying to say. See, you're so
it
smart. I've
it's like,
rambled on, and you took everything I was saying and put it into one
like, well,
sentence. Can it be
well, the
hurt?
thing, well, I think what you were trying to get at is, and I agree with you, the only thing that's going to hurt Disney is the dilution of their brands. And when they come out, like the executives and whatnot come out and say, and this goes for every single studio, this goes for every single IP farm out there, Warner Brothers, Universal, Lionsgate, even like A24 or whatever. Like, you can, is your brand going to be hurt? And I think Disney Plus is making somewhat of a difference. I feel like people now are more weary to go to an MCU movie or a Star Wars movie or project, even a Pixar project, more so than they were a decade ago. And that's a significant amount of criticism when you're talking about these brands, because they're some of the biggest in the entire world, some of the biggest in human existence. And to think that, oh man, 2008, 2009, 2010 with Pixar was Wally, Up, and Toy Story 3.
Yeah, right. And
In
I
that
mean, and
same,
those were like the
and
peak years.
yeah, that's the end of the golden age, at least in my opinion. You had all of that excitement and $2 billion worth of entertainment, still the biggest domestic box office gross for any movie ever, at least in terms of raw dollars and not inflation, with The Force Awakens. That wasn't because of the quality of the movie. I feel like there's been a reckoning with that movie in particular over the last couple of years. It's not just The Last Jedi, it's not just The Rise of Skywalker. It's that one too. There wasn't very much direction, and it didn't, even though it set up a bunch of stuff, there wasn't a whole lot that it paid off or even did, other than just stroke our nostalgia. And people don't look at that with the same optimism as they did back in 2015. And then you have Avengers Endgame, which I think a lot of people think, hey, this was the,
That was it. That was the peak.
yeah, that was, well,
We're
no, I mean,
we're
it was the build up a story for like 12
yeah,
plus, like 11 or
11
12 years.
years. And I told people when that movie came out, dude, I said, I don't know if they're going to, and it was me being real, they're not going to be able to follow this up because whatever you build up after, even if you have a better story or equally good story, Endgame did it first. You know, and so because Endgame did it first, it's like a once in a lifetime experience. Like people said that Star Wars in '77 was a once in a lifetime experience, and neither you nor I were born to and lived through that, but we lived through Endgame. And I kind of feel bad for the kids who missed it. You know, that was a fun time.
Well, I feel like most people who can listen to this lived through Endgame,
Oh, I
but maybe
agree,
not
but I
that.
mean in the future.
Well, okay, yeah, for sure. But one of the things that we haven't talked about even, but I feel like it's worth talking about in terms of the success that they saw in 2019, is the live action movies as well. Because 2019 saw the release of Aladdin as well as Lion King.
Yeah, I didn't like either one of those. I don't
Well,
like any of the live action remakes. We've talked about that. But no,
okay,
continue.
but I feel like it's definitely worth mentioning. Obviously, they're going to do the Moana one, which I
With The
have my
Rock.
reservations about. Yeah, like, well, obviously, but I have my reservations about that. The problem with that, at least in my opinion, is Disney is starting to run out of classic IP property. They kind of hit the bottom of that well in 2019 with The Lion King. Aladdin was kind of a risk, but I kind of like the direction they took with it. They had somebody like, Guy Ritchie has a distinct vision, even though they didn't let Guy Ritchie go full Guy Ritchie with that movie. It was still more visually appealing than most other things that they put out there. And they can't hinge these properties on Haley Bailey or however you say her name. And
Yeah, her.
you can't, you can't, you can't do anything. The appeal of all of these movies is the fact that there's nostalgic appeal for the people who watched them before, and they're willing to pay to see the remakes of them in quote unquote live action.
Yeah, you
And
know how I feel about that, man. It's not for
I
me.
I told yeah, and I've discussed this on my channel too that I feel like they're really like Disney understands this and they're trying to dip their toes in the water with something like Moana. Because what they're really trying to do with the remake of Moana and now this remake of Tangled that they're talking about is they're trying to get to Frozen because Frozen still has a whole lot of cultural appeal. And they want to make sure that something like Moana, which did fairly well at the box office, but didn't do very well in terms of marketing and advertising toy sales, really, uh, has cultural touch like has a cultural touchstone. People like the songs, people like the characters and everything.
And at least with Moana is more recent.
Well, that's my point. Is
Right.
it's super recent, but it
Right.
didn't do well in terms of sales. So they're not tarnishing like a very juggernaut brand. There might be tarnishing, the goodwill from a movie that's only like literally like 7 years old at this point, but they aren't going to like throw it to the wolves and see like what happens if it was like Frozen because they still have Frozen 3 coming out, right?
Yeah, I mean,
So,
Frozen. I think Frozen might be the only animated property that's new that's still like super well received.
well, this is the problem is they want to do sequels to all these live action movies like Aladdin they've been talking about for a long time before
Right.
Will Smith got up and slapped Chris Rock.
Maleficent got one, didn't it? They made it to a second one, I think, right? I
They
never
got
saw
that
it.
one to a second one. They got that one to
Yeah,
a second one.
yeah.
They're doing a Cruella sequel or something. But the reason
Man,
they're no, but
not
like
really.
I have to say the
Yeah.
reason they're doing all of this is because they want franchises. You reintroduce something with nostalgia appeal, hopefully garner enough success and enough cultural cachet with the people like Emma Stone being Cruella Deville for people who are interested, or Angelina Jolie is Maleficent, and you get people to show up for a sequel that's not based off the original property because Disney absolutely sucks. And when I say they suck,
Thank you,
they
bro.
are the worst. No, they're the worst major studio in recent memory, literally this entire century, making like original IP. Their last major success? Pirates of the Caribbean 20 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing is that's why this whole thing about it being creatively bankrupt, like, and if they continue to treat the writers the way they're doing and try to replace them with AI, like, I think maybe someday AI will actually be quote unquote creative, but it's going to be even more recycled BS than we're already getting now. Like it's mind-boggling to me that they're not getting any favor with people by doing something like this. It's madness. And they do absolutely suck, but yet like I mentioned before, they own everything. And no
Yeah.
matter what, it's going to take a lot for them to completely kill off Marvel. Yes, Marvel's had some flops. And I think the main problem, which even Bob Iger himself says, is there's way too much content. They're putting out too much content. Marvel worked better when it was like 3 movies a year or even two. I think if they scale it back to 3 movies a year and maybe one Disney Plus show a year, or 2 movies a year and 3 Disney Plus shows, that's better. But we got 3 movies a year and multiple Disney Plus shows, and people just skip them or don't watch them, and it's because they're not that important. They've already kind of established that the shows are not that important, with the exception of like one, maybe two. So they're not giving you what you want. I think again, I think absence makes the heart grow fonder. I know that their bottom line's important and their thing is now we have to milk, 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 milk. But maybe it is best if they really scale it back and if they really like stop putting out so much product. And but I don't know if they're not gonna listen. It's all about money to them, and that's it. And it's like, dude, you're Disney. You're gonna make money anyways. You're gonna
Well,
make it anyways.
well, I feel like one of the things they can do to business decision that I think would benefit them in the long run is if they do, and I feel like this was in the works. I haven't really heard much about it, but if they were to buy out, I believe Comcast, who owns Hulu,
I don't want
and
them to
just
buy anybody else, bro.
no, not buy out Comcast and buy out Universal stake, but like just buy out their stake in Hulu, and then get rid of Hulu and merge Hulu with Disney Plus. Because if you do that, I think that brings a lot more content to the platform where you don't have to saturate it with your biggest brands, and you can, like you said, linger. Like you can have MCU and Star Wars go back to being theatrical only, and maybe just having one show that's worth telling, like maybe every year. That's only like 6 or 10 or whatever, however many episodes or whatnot. And then I think, and then you would allow these brands to regrow because, like you said, absence makes the heart grow fonder.
Yep.
And people, like, even though the last several years of the MCU and Star Wars and all this other stuff has been abysmal, like in the grand scheme of things, man, in Avengers, Secret War, whatever it is, like freaking Kang Dynasty is going to come out, and then
Right.
people are just going to fall over themselves again because that's just the nature of content.
Can you stop the juggernaut, bro? We talked about that. Can it really be stopped? They have done a phenomenal job, and I say this. This is something I say when I say a phenomenal job. Hear me out. They've done a phenomenal job. They've done a phenomenal job buying things that make money. They love your money and they know how to make it. They've done a phenomenal job buying things that we love. And I mean, there's been people talking about like merging with Sony. No, please, like no more. But if it happens, it wouldn't surprise me because I mean that again, this is not really a IRL real life talk, but companies have done this since the like at one time in the world there were like 100 companies. Now there's like 4. And I'm saying that sarcastically, but I'm saying that like you know what I mean? Like people have merged and bought people out and this and that and yeah.
I think we need diversity in the market, especially with something like this. I don't want Disney to own everything because
Exactly.
we've seen what Disney does when they own everything, and it hasn't been good for the consumer because what they've put out has been mediocre because they're not the sequels are a very good idea of this. They aren't putting things together with a plan, and it's devastating for fans because you there's so much money involved. There's so much time involved. There's so much of all this other stuff. You think that these bad decisions would be caught somewhere, but they're not.
No, it's just bad leadership. And again, it's the corporate thing. It doesn't matter how bad it is because it makes us money. And like I've said before, the people on the internet might be vocal, but they are a vocal minority. And the unfortunate truth is that people people in the casual sphere don't care. And I've said this a gazillion times. None of the casual moviegoers care what Brie Larson said. Most don't even know what she said. Like most of these casual moviegoers barely recognize any of these actors. You know, the super casuals. Like they hear about a superhero movie. Oh, it's the next one coming out. Okay, cool. We have like release dates on stuff, right? You know, before the SAG strike. Now, in the mainstream, people just see the trailer. Oh, or the TV spot. Oh, that's coming out now. Like when we were kids before the internet. So it doesn't even matter to them. So ultimately, when they lose the casuals, I think that's when something needs to change. But I feel like they need to start making those changes now. I think they need to start hiring good writers and coming up with new stuff. Like, and I don't, when I say new stuff, I don't mean like dump Marvel and Star Wars. Scale that back, give us something refreshing with those products, but also maybe they should go back to making classic animation. I don't know, man. Like, The Princess and the Frog, was that the last one they did with classic animation?
Yeah, I think
They
so.
got
At
to go
least Disney
back. Yeah,
began.
they got to go
Well, the
back, man.
well, the thing is, you talk about like losing casuals, which is interesting, but like Secret Invasion, in terms of the numbers that have come out, and I know none of these are official, they're all just kind of from bits and pieces sources that
Leaks.
try to track this. Yeah, like right that I mean, that show did abysmal for like I mean, like to put it into context, that show, even though Disney Plus is the second biggest streaming service in the world, or at least in the domestic market, it did worse than cable shows, and people have access to watch it whenever they want. I don't quite understand how that business model can continue. And some of the things that are coming out now is echoes even worse, and they might can it, but they might not. There's a lot of speculation going on in that.
And what's
And like you
crazy
said,
is that DC is also a mess, dude. Like, oh my
well,
god, why are all these
this is a
corporations?
whole other mess.
I
But
know,
like
but I'm saying
this is a whole other mess.
corporations, corporations.
Well, yeah, but I feel like one of the problems that DC is going to have, and I know this is completely off topic, but one of the reasons I think they're going to have a problem is because James Gunn thinks, for whatever reason, that the Matrix strategy is going to work. And the Matrix strategy is the strategy that they've also implemented with Star Wars, where everything is canon. Is like we want video games, TV shows,
Right.
movies, and all this other like comic books to be canon within this universe, and people are going to be invested.
Which
And I
is
tell you,
very
yeah,
difficult.
no. I tell you 100% right now, impossible.
Right.
Impossible
Right.
to make a brand that big have that much interlinking continuity that people
Because
are supposed to be invested in and understand. No, stupid. It's never going to work. It never works, and we're seeing the real time
and before
implications of that
and
with
before somebody
Marvel.
says and before somebody says it works in Disney, no, it does not. I'm sorry, it works in Star Wars, it does not, because there's been plenty of examples that I've given on this channel for years of story threads that they've dropped or contradicted. There's been
It's not.
tons. There's in Star Wars, for example, if you read the novelizations of some of the movies, there's events that directly contradict what's in the film. There's comic books do their own thing. Like the Lucasfilm Story Group claims to have threading, but it's very very limited, and it's bad, it's horrible. And
Well,
with DC, it's even bigger. DC is an even bigger and older franchise than Star Wars, you know what I mean?
well, yeah. I'm talking about this in the ether too. It's like it doesn't matter whether even if it all interconnects perfectly, it doesn't matter because you alienate fans. Like I like movies, I watch TV shows, but I'm not going to go play a game. I'm not going to go read a comic or read a book
The games are probably
unless
going to be
I
like side stories, I'm guessing.
but that's my point is like it's all supposed to be interconnected, and Marvel's having this problem too. It's like Marvel's having this problem in a very small scale where they have movies and television shows and it's already too much for fans.
Right, right, right. Yep. And also, I feel like, and this is a whole other thing, while James Gunn may have good intentions, there are holes in his plan as well. So I just, man,
Yeah, that's a whole other discussion.
Feige's the only one that's been able to make it work, and even he's kind of been falling apart. That's why I
Feige
think,
Feige and Marvel and Disney they've made it work for 11 years
right.
because they convinced not only normal fans but hardcore fans that they had a plan.
And they
And the
did
truth
for a
is
little while. No, not
The
this
truth,
big. No, hold on. I'm not. Let me correct myself. Not a plan for every single thing, but they did have a plan. It just wasn't. They added to the plan. It wasn't like
well,
the
the thing is
entire
they
plan.
might have had by the time Avengers came, they might have had a villain,
Right. Well,
but they
they
didn't
had
have.
a plan, but they didn't have the details ironed out of the plan,
Yeah, well, yeah, and that's the thing is like
which
the
you can't.
Marvel Cinematic. Well, no, you can't. But the Marvel Cinematic Universe works primarily because it was able to convince everybody through retroactive storytelling that everything was connected. The biggest issue there was like, the Hail Hydra stuff in the Winter Soldier paid off real perfectly in a lot of ways that I still think is like really genuinely interesting.
That's because the
But
Russos are great filmmakers, man.
well, yeah, well that too. One of the reasons that they're losing all the people who they're losing everybody who was really good for them, like James Gunn and the Russos, but also bringing in people like Sam Raimi who have his own distinct vision. And then Multiverse of Madness is a very flawed movie, but it looks great. The only problem I have with it is that it looks like a Sam Raimi movie and not an MCU movie, which is strange. It's
Yeah.
like I don't really know how to explain that other than like it was
You
just
just have to
strange.
watch more Sam Raimi movies. I know what you mean.
No, no, no. Well, to the people who haven't probably, but I'm just saying it's strange to me. The point there being, it's Marvel never had a plan. Star Wars never had a plan, but they're big properties that could justify having movies, television shows, comic books, video games, uh, you know, novelizations, and all this other stuff to interconnect the story. But I always think you think too big and you're trying to sell too many things because you're trying to justify an entire empire and not tell any legitimate good story. And when you get too big for your britches there, everything starts to fall apart. And Marvel and well, not just Marvel, but Marvel and Star Wars and Pixar and all this other stuff are starting to fall by the wayside with not only hardcore fans, but also, like you've discussed, maybe some general fans too who think twice about going to see the next Marvel movie, the next
Yeah.
Star Wars movie, the next
People are
Pixar movie,
thinking with their wallets.
right? And in the interim, Disney, for lack of money or anything else, they're running out of things to buy or acquire that are billion-dollar properties like Avatar, and they have yet to find any major success with creating any legitimate continuation or heir apparent in their own studio. Like, they don't have the next Pirates of the Caribbean, no matter how much they want to throw into the Haunted Mansion, John Carter, Braun, like all these other, like the myriad of flops that they've had over the last 20 years.
People don't even remember those movies. Like I would not have remembered John Carter if you didn't just say the name right now.
Well, yeah, the Lone Ranger, like all of these. They're terrible movies, and they're Prince of Persia.
I just know the games. I remember them now.
With
You mentioned them to me, but I forgot that even existed until you just mentioned it to me. It's crazy.
but yeah, that they have a long list of franchise starters that flopped hard at the box office and made embarrassments of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're gonna wrap it up, man. Thanks for stopping by. Disney sucks, and I hope that Bob Iger said a couple days ago. He said that they're gonna try and
Can I
make
say?
better movies, but
Can I say? I just want to. I'll end it. I'll end it with here.
no, go for it.
I know what you're saying. Like Disney sucks and all this other stuff, but I'm going to make a big prediction. Bob Iger is looking to sell.
Well, he's not. I don't think he can. Doesn't he have to get approval from everybody to sell?
He needs to sell. They brought Bob Iger back. He was the person who made Disney what it is
Are
today.
you talking about that rumor about him selling it to Apple? Because I heard that.
Well, there's that rumor going in, but like ever since he came back, I thought they're bringing him back because they want him to shepherd a couple of years, right the ship, and then sell it for the biggest entertainment deal ever.
Do you? How much more money does Apple have than Disney? Do you happen to know that
Billions,
offhand?
like no, like Apple, like Bill.
No, I know it's a
I
trillion
don't know
dollar
what.
company. I was just,
No, I
curious.
don't like. Uh,
I think I
no,
think it
it's
hit the trillions. I think it did.
no,
Right.
like well, somebody's going to throw this in the comments, but yeah, like
I can check right now.
Disney's $100 billion company. Like they're huge, but
I know.
no, Apple's like 10 times type of Disney. Like it is huge.
I know, but let me see. Hold on. Let me see if I can get an answer for you. Because like right now, because
I don't know. I
uh-huh,
don't know if
uh-huh.
Apple is going to buy Disney, but I'm just saying, like, I think that they want to sell.
So
Like that, like
Apple is at 2.8 trillion according to the market, and Disney is at, damn, bro. Did you hear what I just said? 2.8 trillion, yo.
ugh,
And then Disney, that's a lot of money. Disney is at it. Oh, 167 billion. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it's 10 times. It's over 10 times the
Oh,
here's the thing.
yeah. It's a lot.
Here's the reason I also think that this makes sense, that those rumors, is because Apple, the way you think about this is that Apple hasn't reinvented itself since the iPhone.
Yeah, but they own everybody's ass with the iPhone,
No,
bro.
well, yeah,
That's
that's
the
the point.
thing.
That's the point. They do. They kind of shot themselves in the foot by having an exclusive on AT&T when it first came out in 2007. If they didn't do that, I bet the Android market wouldn't be as big as it is now.
Yeah.
They could have cornered everything. But the point is they're doing all this stuff with Apple Plus and like Apple TV Plus and everything in order to supplement their brands, in order to get people to buy the iPhone and buy the MacBooks and all this other stuff, and have kind of an outlet with that. The same thing is said for Amazon Prime. Them buying Disney makes financial sense.
Hopefully they'll get
So,
good leadership in there.
well, regardless, it just makes financial sense. So I just think that they brought Iger back in order to right the ship, and they're going to sell. I think that that's coming down the pipeline in the next couple of years, and mark these words or whatever.
No, I wouldn't be surprised because that's been the rumor. That has been the
Hmm.
rumor, and there you go. All right. Well, thanks a lot. Check out KRW Network. I really appreciate you stopping by.
Yeah, of course, man. Thanks for
All
having
right.
me.
No, anytime, man. Thank you again. We'll talk to y'all in the next video. Peace.